So I got kicked out of UA. Part of me had been hoping Raleigh would keep what I told him a secret, but I guess it makes sense that he wouldn't. Jake's joined the Quirk Reformation Society, but he hasn't actually gotten one for all yet. Apparently Jake needs a really strong body to be able to handle it, so he's been training with Manny for the past few weeks. But Manny said that since Jake is the first user of One for All, it isn't as powerful, so he should be getting it any day now. Now that I'm expelled from UA, Jake has become Manny's man on the inside, and that leaves me. I've been thinking lately about what Rowley said, about me just being Manny's errand boy. But Manny must have known I was feeling left out, because today he told me this.
Greg, I want you to help me enact our next plan. This will be our biggest operation since the USJ.
Later I met with Manny and some of his top goons.
We're gonna launch another attack.
Data card, Hero Course Reject, Greg Heffley. Thanks to his incredibly versatile quirk, Greg has always been popular with his classmates. However, his arrogance led him to be disqualified from the UA Hero Course entrance exam, and he was placed in General Studies. At his lowest point, he was offered by his brother to join the Quirk Reformation Society, where he now serves as one of Manny's top henchmen. Despite his placement in General Studies, Greg has proven his skill in combat, getting second place in the UA Sports Festival.
Quirk, Sketch. He can create any inanimate object by drawing it. However, he can only create things he's seen in the real world, and the object will be recreated to scale. He can use any physical method of drawing, including using posters, boards, or chalk to create larger objects. The object is only created when he finishes the drawing, meaning he can resume the drawing later or even finish someone else's drawing.
Manny briefed us on the plan. He told us that we were going to sabotage the freshman ski trip. Every year in January, the freshman Hero Course kids go to some remote mountain camp to do extensive training with actual heroes. I had heard about this too. They talked about it a lot when I was applying to the Hero Course. But Manny said that the location was top secret, and because of the USJ incident, they were tightening security even more. Apparently nobody except a few teachers, the bus driver, and the heroes running the camp would know where it was until the kids got there. That was where we come in.
We'll be performing a recon mission. Thanks to Mrs. Craig's quirk, we can spy on a faculty meeting and find out exactly where the camp is taking place.
Data card, Quirk Reformation Society leader, Manny Heffley. He may be only 6, but Manny Heffley has already risen to become one of the most powerful contemporary villains. After obtaining All for One under mysterious circumstances, he quickly amassed a collection of quirks, one of these being Megamind, an intelligence quirk that makes him already more intelligent than the average adult. Frustrated by the way he was ostracized for his quirk, he soon formed the Quirk Reformation Society, a group dedicated to preserving the value of strong quirks and ensuring that strength is celebrated, not shunned.
Quirk, All for One. He can steal the quirks of others simply by making physical contact with them. He can use these quirks as his own, but can also give them to people. If he gives a quirk to someone who already has one, the results are mixed. All for One will also be passed down even involuntarily. When the current user dies, the quirk will be passed down to the killer or, if there is none, somebody nearby. Any previously stored quirks will also go to the new owner. Manny is the 9th user of All for One, and he, along with the previous users, has used All for One to create a quirk, One for All. One for All is the only quirk an All for One user can't steal. Quirks currently possess Star Portals, Megamind, Freeze Dance, Cure Wounds, and several other unknown quirks.
The next night, we started our plan. Jake, Manny, and I went through one of his portals and ended up in a classroom at UA. Jake left the room, and a minute later he came back with a library card, which we could use to disguise Manny. From there, I used the whiteboard in the classroom to make a blanket, which we hung over the cart like a tarp. Now that Manny was covered, I went through the portal back to Manny. Jake wheeled Manny through the school as they searched for the conference room.
Since it was after dark, the only people left were a few teachers staying late to do work, but I guess none of them found Jake suspicious. After a minute or two of waiting in cornies with the others, a portal opened back up. We all headed through to find ourselves in the conference room. Once we got there, I finally got to see Mrs. Craig's quirk in action. Well, there wasn't much to see. She just walked around the room tapping parts of the walls, but before I could ask what she was doing, we heard something. Somebody just walked into the room. Data card, Quirk Reformation Society member, Mrs. Craig. Not much is known about this mysterious villain, who is a part of the Quirk Reformation Society when she's not teaching at Westmore Middle School. As a strict follower of the rules, she wants to make sure that those with dangerous or powerful quirks are treated fairly.
Quirk, eyes everywhere. By touching a surface, she can essentially turn it into her personal camera. She can see and hear from this spot, allowing her to spy on areas without actually being there herself. There is no visual trace of these cameras, making them very useful for stealth. However, she can only have 5 active at a time. Producing another will cause a current one to deactivate. She can also only view one at a time. Instead of her regular hearing and vision, she can cycle through her 5 channels.
It was Archie Kelly. Nobody said anything for a few seconds. Archie tried to leave, but the Grout moved to block the door. I watched Manny as he examined Archie, and I realized that Manny was planning on killing him. I couldn't let that happen, so I had to do something. As I looked around in a panic, I realized there was someone in the room, someone I had almost forgotten about. I suggested to Manny that we let Mr. Era use his quirk. Mr. Era could basically wipe people's memory of the past 60 seconds. It was perfect for the situation, and Archie would get away unharmed. Fine, but he's not getting away that easily. Manny walked over to Archie, pressed a hand up against him, and stole his quirk. I didn't think All For One would even work on mutation type quirks, but we watched as the bark around Archie crumpled inward, his body getting smaller until he looked like, well, a normal person. All Archie got out was, "What the heck did you guys do?" before Mr. Era wiped his memory. Data card, memory wiping villain, Mr. Era. Yet another teacher of Westmore Middle School turned villain. Mr. Era was a geography teacher and a moderator of the school newspaper. No one's quite sure what made him turn evil, but according to rumors, it has to do with a comic a student drew of him.
Quirk, mind wipe. He can wipe people's memory of the last 60 seconds. Not only is it useful for stealth, he can also use it for combat to disorientate his enemies. In order to activate it, he needs the target to speak to him.
We all waited in a corner of the room as, naked, Archie Kelly looked around bewildered out in the hallway. I expected him to be horrified, but he actually seemed kind of happy. I guess being a walking tree does have its downsides. Once he got his bearings, he ran off to find some clothes, and the rest of us emerged. I thought we would be heading back, but I guess Manny had ever more in mind. Grout, how would you like a second quirk? The Grout grinned, and Manny walked over and placed a hand on his vines. I had no idea what to expect. Was the Grout going to turn into a tree? How would he have 2 mutant-type quirks as one? As we all watched, something began to happen. The Grout's body began to change. His body growing as black vines were replaced with thick branches. When it was over, the Grout had a massive tree-like body. I didn't realize it was possible to look ridiculous and terrifying at the same time, but somehow this guy pulled it off. He had massive tree trunks for hands and legs, and if he could grow like he originally could, I didn't want to see a tree grow at its max power. Data card, Hero Intriguing, Archie Kelly. Archie Kelly is a member of the UA General Studies course and sometimes hangs out with Greg and his friends. Unlike many General Studies students, Archie did not apply for the Hero course, though he has some resentment that the entrance exam is not at all suited to his quirk. There are times when he wishes he didn't have such a cumbersome power, but it does have its advantages.
Quirk, tree. Instead of skin, he has bark growing on most of his body, making him essentially a human tree hybrid. He can grow or retract branch-like arms at will, but they are also coated with bark. Interestingly, he can gain energy through both cellular respiration or photosynthesis. He can change the type of tree he is, although it requires a lot of energy. He will even grow the flowers or fruit of the respective tree. His seeds do actually grow, but they will only grow into regular trees. Due to All For One, he has recently lost his quirk, giving him the body of a regular human and a human height of 5'5".
After that, we headed out. The others took a portal back to Corny's, but Manny and I took one back home. Welcome home, you two! Since we're away so often, Manny and I came up with the alibi that I'm tutoring him with his schoolwork. Manny is still registered in school, but he ditches whenever there's a meeting. As for me, my parents still think I'm at UA. I hid the letter about my expulsion and deleted the emails my parents got before they could reach them. It's not a great long-term solution, but I'm at least safe for now. Being expelled from UA does have its perks, mainly that I get to stay home playing Twisted Wizard all day, at least when my parents aren't around. But as I settled in, the doorbell rang. That was odd. Dad was already at home. Are Gregory and Emmanuel Heffley here? We need to speak to them. Shit! I hadn't even considered that UA would tell the cops. I hurried back upstairs to get Manny. I could hear Mom coming up the stairs. We only had a few seconds. Luckily, that was all we needed. Well, things just got a lot more complicated. Mom and Dad have been texting me for the past few hours, and it seems like the cops told them that Manny and I are involved with villains. We took one of Manny's portals back to Corny's, which I guess is where we're living now. I used the chalkboard in the restaurant to make some blankets and pillows for me and Manny, which I guess we'll have to do for now. I was sick of eating Corny's food, but that was all we had. So Manny and I ate in silence in the darkened restaurant. After that, I headed off to sleep. It's not like there was anything else to do. Wednesday. That afternoon, Jake came to Corny's with news. He said that the faculty meeting was tonight, and it was starting in an hour. Soon we were all gathered around as Mrs. Craig tuned into the meeting.
They're talking about the trip.
We waited with bated breath. There was no guarantee that they would even say the name of the camp, so all we could do was watch Mrs. Craig. Finally, she told us what we had all been waiting for. The name of the camp, Hardscrabble Farms. Go watch Diary of a Wimpy Kid Known in November. The trip wasn't happening for about 2 weeks, so we had some time. As soon as our meeting ended, Manny made an announcement. Jake, you've been training hard the past few weeks. You're ready to receive One For All. I had no idea what to expect. Was there going to be some big ceremony? Would Manny pass on One For All the same way he gave the Grout Archie's quirk? He walked over to Jake, reached out, and this happened. Jake's body glowed as the power coursed through his veins. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Manny had said One For All wouldn't be that strong yet, and it was already this powerful? Jake deactivated his quirk before he blew a hole in the wall, and Manny kept talking.
One For All is powerful, and it might take some time to get used to, but in time, it'll be an incredibly powerful quirk.
Jake went to go train more with Manny, so I decided to pass the time by making more stuff for our base. Using a bunch of sheets of paper, I was able to draw a huge whiteboard, which I could use to create even bigger objects. I made a few beds plus a lot more food. But just as I was getting ready to go to sleep, Jake came back into the building and said he had something to ask me.
Greg, what's it like having a quirk?
I don't know. It's pretty cool, I guess. But it's not like I think about it every second. I know, I've only had a quirk for a few hours, but it just doesn't feel that different, you know? I thought my life would be totally changed when I got a quirk, but the only thing that's different is that I can punch stuff and jump around. I didn't really know what to say to Jake. Sure, my quirk didn't define my life or anything, but it's the whole reason I am where I am today. Without it, I wouldn't have even taken the UA entrance exam or joined the society with Manny. Maybe not yet, but just give it time. With your quirk, we'll be able to take down UA for sure. Jake seemed kind of uncertain, but he headed home after that, so I decided to get some sleep. The next day, Manny told me we were having another meeting, but he didn't say what it was about. It seems like we're really busy these days, but now that I'm not going to school, I don't really have an excuse not to go.
Before we launch our attack, there's one more thing to take care of. We need to increase our numbers.
Manny said we had about 40 people ready to fight. I thought that sounded pretty good, but Manny said we could need even more. We started thinking of ways to get more people on our side. Jake suggested that Manny offer people quirks in exchange for joining. That sounded like a good idea to me. It's not like there was any shortage of quirks in the world, but Manny said that was too slow going, and that we needed a lot of people at once.
We're going to recruit the most powerful group of villains in the world, the Mingo clan.